Well, I'm picking these shallots today, and a lot of them unfortunately have gone to seed, but that is just one of the variables in gardening. Fortunately, I'm quite encouraged that although maybe half of them have gone to seed, there are a few that haven't. They are small. It's not going to be a great harvest, but it's better than nothing. The garlic, by contrast, has been really good, and I've been this year repeating my garlic growing experiments and concluded a few things which I'll just go through now. So the first thing is that garlic really likes full sun, so if you can grow it in full sun, that is definitely worthwhile. The other thing that I found is that if you mulch it with fresh compost in autumn, it doesn't do anywhere near as well as if you do the same in spring. And every year when I've mulched in spring, the bulb size is at least a third bigger. So that is definitely worth doing. And I'll just show you the garlic now, actually, because it looks really nice. So the first batch is the garlic that was mulched in spring, and you can see it's perfectly respectable. This batch grew in light shade, and the next batch is the one that grew in full sun and that got mulched in spring, and you can see that is a really good size. Very happy with that. And then the final batch is the stuff that again grew in light shade and didn't get mulched at all because it was planted at high density for harvesting as green garlic, but in the end we didn't have to harvest it, so we just left it. And you can see it's way smaller, partly due to the density and partly, as I said, due to the lack of mulching and partly due to the light shade. So that was kind of like the worst of all scenarios for it. Just sorting the shallots into ones that have gone to seed and ones that haven't, and maybe it's 30% that haven't gone to seed, but anyway, it's still worth it. So I'm going to carry on with this. I'll show you it all later. So I'm left with a slightly weedy bed, a fairly good crop of compost. And it is important when you compost your onions to actually chop through the bulbs, otherwise they'll still be there a year later. But if you chop through them, then they rot down pretty quickly. And a reasonable quantity of very small shallots. I'm not going to do shallots from sets again next year. I'm just going to grow them from seed. I find it so much more reliable. And the only reason that I did them from sets last 2 years running is so that they finish about now. Well, ideally they would have finished in July, beginning of July, which is a month and a little bit probably earlier than the main crop onions, and that is kind of useful for some successions. But obviously if most of them end up going to seed, and a lot of them are small, and it's not really that worthwhile a crop, and it's much better off just to change the successions around a little bit and grow them from seed and harvest them in August. I have harvested them slightly early because what I found last year is if I left them in, even more of them went to seed. So I'm going to clear this bed up now, and I'm going to get some leeks in here. So the other reason why I've done shallots the last few years is just to compare the yield really with doing overwintered onions. And again, I've concluded that overwintered onions are way more reliable. So I'm just pulling out the tough balls at the moment, and these start bulbing when the day length reaches 14 hours, which is the middle of April, and so they give you a really nice bulb towards the end of June. You could leave them as long as July, but I just prefer to take them out now because you can see that these are definitely ready. And I've also got Lilia and North Holland Blood Red in this bed, and they're 16-hour onions, so they start to bulb when the day length gets to 16 hours, which is the middle of May. So they're nowhere near as big, and a couple of those have gone to seed, but I'm just leaving these in just around the edge of this asparagus bed, and obviously I can just pull those out as the asparagus grows. I'll probably give them another 2 or 3 weeks, and by then they will bulb quite considerably more. And so that really just provides me with really plentiful amount of onions to get me through until the beginning of August, when my main crop onions are ready. So I'm going to take all these tough balls out now, and I'll show you them. And yeah, I'd say looking quite nice. And hopefully you can see how nicely the red onions and the asparagus kind of interplant and not really affecting each other at all. It's a really nice technique. And it's also worth noting that I'm quite pleased that I took the decision to plant bulbing onions for a lot of my early salad onions, because in the end I had too many salad onions. They did too well, and so I had loads spare, and so I'm just leaving those now to bulb, and so obviously I get nice early red bulbing onions rather than just really subpar salad onions. So yeah, that's always a good decision. And the 2 varieties I like to use are Lilia and North Holland Blood Red for that. They make a great salad onion, but they also make a good bulbing onion. So I'm drying all of these in my mini greenhouse, and I always leave the leaves on. I think it's important to leave the leaves on if you want them to store well. There's a chemical, I can't remember what it's called now, in the leaves, and it goes into the bulbs and it suppresses shooting. So if you want to store your onions for a long time, so into spring, it's definitely worth leaving the leaves on. I think probably with these, because we'll eat these before the end of the year, it probably doesn't matter too much, but I just do all my onions in the same way. So we'll leave those until they're rustling dry. So there's my leeks. These are the winter leeks. These are the spring leeks. And my summer leeks are doing quite nicely. And I've just put my autumn leeks in as well. So these particular ones, because they're going to be in the ground for a long time, these are all multi-sowed. A few of them have got too many in, so I think that one's got like 5 or 6 in. I really like about 3 or 4 leeks to a module. I'll show you how I plant them. I don't do it the way lots of people do. So I'm putting the leeks in. I'm using a bulb planter. I just like to make a hole just a couple of inches or an inch maybe deeper than the bulb planter itself, and that just gives me a little bit of extra depth when I'm popping the modules in. I'm using these kind of root trainers from Containerwise, and I actually like the shallower one. I've used that for the ones at the back. The ones at the back are the onions for spring. They're a little bit smaller. They're going to get shaded by the squash that's going to grow on this frame, but the squash come out in October, and obviously the leeks will continue to grow into spring, so they will be fine. The ones at the front are the ones for winter. And I've also grown some of them in the deeper root trainers. I like the root trainers. You can see the bottom there, that the roots kind of come out and they air prune. They stop growing basically when they come into contact with the air. And you know, the actual roots are nice and long, they're not matted. Yeah, I'm really happy with them. These are a little bit of a fiddle to get out by comparison with the shallower trays, but anyway, I'll just drop them in like that, and we'll do another one. And unlike some people, I do just plant them just like you would plant anything else. So I just fold the compost in around them like that, and they're just fine. So yeah, I'll give them a good watering in after I've done that. So there's my last few, and you can see there, look how nicely the roots are trained. down, and it's nice and quick to plant them like this. And I know some people talk about how it's really nice to have white stems. I just can't tell the difference, really. I think they're just fine like this. I think it's like show gardeners who are judged by how nice and long this white stem is, kind of perpetuate this ideal of what a leek should look like, and then the supermarkets kind of get into that as well. But I think they grow just fine like this, and I'm quite happy with them. It's easier. They're not planted quite as deep, so it's easier to harvest them, and they grow really nice and healthy, and you don't get the kind of the disruption to them that you get when you just pop an individual bare rooted leek into a hole and kind of let it fend for itself. These obviously are going in with their roots and the compost all undisturbed, so they should grow away really nicely. So those leeks looking lovely, and I took my first early peas out about 3 weeks ago and cleared my second early peas this week, and my main crop peas are just ready. Anyway, in the gap left by these second early peas, I've just put my spare leeks. So I think I'm pretty much done. My name's Steve, this is the Seaside Kitchen Garden and Allotment channel. I'll see you soon.